Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's broadcast, Traditional Syringe Filling to Scalable Resilient Delivery Device. I'm Rita Peters, Editorial Director of Pharmaceutical Technology, and I'll be moderating today's event. This webcast is presented by Pharmaceutical Technology and is sponsored by Apogect in partnership with IPS. I'd like to share some statements from the sponsors. Apogect's mission is to make injectable medicine safe and available for everyone. Apogect is a rapidly growing medical technology company revolutionizing how the world fills, finishes, and delivers injectable medicines and vaccines. The company's proprietary technology platform brings together simple, interconnecting components to create scalable drug delivery devices for all markets. Apogect's first device, the single-dose prefilled injector, is a new type of scalable prefilled syringe created by twisting a pen needle-style hub onto a blow-fill seal container. Apogect is proud to be working with the U.S. government and several leading pharmaceutical companies on COVID-19 response. The company's needle hub and connector components have been submitted for pre-submission FDA review. IPS is a global leader in developing innovative business solutions for the biotechnology and pharmaceutical industries. Through operational expertise and industry-leading knowledge, skill, and passion, IPS provides consulting, architecture, engineering, construction management, and compliance services that allow clients to create and manufacture life-impacting products around the world. IPS ranks as one of the top firms in the world solely dedicated to designing, constructing, and qualifying cGMP facilities. Headquartered in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania, IPS is one of the fastest-growing companies servicing the life sciences industry, with over 1,500 professionals across 22 offices in 10 countries. I have a few important announcements before we begin. This webcast is designed to be interactive, and we encourage you to ask questions during the event. You can submit questions by typing them in the Q&A box, which can be found on the right-hand side of your screen. You can enlarge the slide window by clicking on the small square icon in the upper right-hand corner of the slide window, or you can hover your mouse over the lower right-hand corner and drag the window to the desired size. The slides will advance automatically during the event. If you have any technical problems viewing or hearing the presentation, you can click on the question mark help widget in the dock at the bottom of your presentation window. Now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Ray Guidati comes to Apogect with more than 30 years of pharma experience in global business, operational strategy and execution, supply chain management, manufacturing network design, and capital project planning and execution. From 2009 to 2020, he served in a variety of executive leadership roles with Patheon Pharmaceuticals and Thermo Fisher Scientific, which acquired Patheon in August 2017. Most recently, he was Group Vice President of Global Engineering, Capacity Planning, and Technical Operations Services for the Pharma Services Group within Thermo Fisher Scientific, a global leader in serving science and an industry leader in contract pharmaceutical development and manufacturing services. With more than 20 years of experience in marketing and business development, Beth Toten has spearheaded the growth of blow-fill seal and traditional glass filling, prefilled syringes, vials, and cartridges, manufacturing and commercialization efforts for several multinational contract manufacturing organizations. Prior to joining Apogect, Beth was responsible for the introduction of a new manufacturing facility in North America for Unither Pharmaceuticals, significantly scaling the site for sterile and oral product technologies. During her time at Siegfried, Beth directed innovation efforts around biologics and delivery devices through domestic and international production sites of glass ampules, vials, cartridges, and blow-fill seal. At Catalent, she expanded the customer base by helping to create a new injectable blow-fill seal product offering while overseeing a domestic BFS manufacturing site and multiple international sites serving global customers. Rob Roy offers more than 35 years of experience as a subject matter expert in the engineering, qualification, and application of advanced aseptic technology for the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries. He has technical expertise in barrier isolation technology, potent BSL material handling and containment, cleaning validation, and CIP/SIP systems. Rob has served in senior management roles directing global engineering, design, and manufacturing teams on fast-track design build qualification activities for clinical and commercial scale aseptic fill finish facilities. So welcome to all our speakers. Thank you for joining us. Beth, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
So we're going to speak a little bit about the limitations of the prefilled syringe market and a little bit about the current prefilled syringe market. Currently, the prefilled syringe market is used for a wide range of injectable products. It's best known in the industry for higher value products such as biologics or chronic disease drugs that are used with auto-injectors. There are barriers to entering into the prefilled syringe market. It's really around the economics and also understanding the compatibility of components. When you look at prefilled syringes, the development is costly. You really have to focus on whether or not the siliconization within the PFS actually works with the drug substance and do some compatibility testing. There's also glide force issues and other issues that really partners look at when they go through prefilled syringe manufacturing. And the supply chain is very complex with having to keep syringes on hand and also having to keep other components available. And then what ends up is a relatively low output for what you're putting into the line. This is why, for us, BFS is so important, is really from that unit cost and being able to get into other areas of manufacturing, such as generics or vaccines. So our product offering is really around working with products that don't have the ability to currently enter a unit dose market except for a vial, and really focus on getting BFS PFS out into the marketplace. Ray, would you mind talking a little bit about the supply chain and the resiliency of supply chain for us?
Yeah, absolutely. BFS is an advanced aseptic filling process. That's not made up. That's as indicated under the USP guidelines. And the reasons for that is it's an automated process it's really a contained process. And so the filling operations happens inside of the machine itself. There's no opportunity for operator interface. It's actually physically impossible for an operator to get into the space. There is no glass, so there's no or stoppers, and so there is no opportunity for generation of particulate from those two elements that are in there. But the process itself is continuous, and so the containers and the filling and the closing of the entire container closure system happens inside the fill zone in a short 3-second period. The fill zone itself is an ISO 5 environment, so very similar to inside of an isolator in a grade A process. And then the footprint itself is really small. And to give you a perspective, the footprint inside of a normal fill suite for BFS is in the 50 square meter range, and even that's probably generous, but that's as big as it is. There is a gray space on the backside, another 50. So you could put an entire filling module in for roughly 100 square meters, or about a little over 1,000 square feet. And the machine itself sits in an ISO 7 background. So it's, again, very efficient. And again, the reason for that is there's no need for washing or deep hydrogenation stations, stoppering, or capping. Everything happens inside the machine, and you'll see an animation coming up where this will make a little more sense. Beth, I hand it back to you.
So a little bit about BFS and the products that it currently serves within the marketplace. BFS is really known for vaccine manufacturing. Rotavirus in Australia is currently manufactured. in the BFS oral ampules. There's also influenza that has been manufactured in BFS ampules. The longest lasting biologic on the marketplace is Pulmazine. It's been on the market for around 20 to 25 years. And one of the largest markets for BFS currently is ophthalmic products for the unit dose eye drops that are preservative free, and probably best known for Restasis or cyclosporin, which is currently on the market. There's also over 100 parenterals around the world currently in BFS. A lot of them are large volume parenterals, as well as infusions and Lorlock technology. What Apijet provides is adding their platform technology, allowing a container to be able to allow delivery of BFS. Hey, Ray, I'm going to pass it back to you so you can walk through an animation around how BFS actually works, the filling process.
Yeah, so this is an actual video of the process as it sits in our partner facility down in South Carolina, TRC. They've been an excellent partner. But this is an illustration of how the line works. And so what you see is the molten parison head, which is the molten LDP, and the filling needles there in the middle depositing the drug substance, and then the molds come together to form the container all in one go. So what happens is, and what the result is, a continuous ribbon, which in our case, the mold is set up to produce 25 units in a strip. And so it goes down where lot and expiry is engraved through a punching station, which then punches it out into strips of 25 where it's ejected from the machine. It then moves down very, very closely to the next machine where it's separated into strips of 5, and then onward into the Wilco leak detector where vacuum is applied, and the leak integrity of the cards of 5 are all tested, and really it's that simple. So then they just go down for a final scan on the print quality, and then onward for further processing, which is basically visual inspection and then packaging. And so now I'm going to hand it back to Beth.
So I'm just going to walk through a little bit about our current product offering from the Apijet organization. And it's really about the Apijet technology platform. And our platform is a BFS container where you add a needle hub and a connector. And when you put them together, it ends up becoming a BFS prefilled syringe. This right here is something that we're actually working on, and we are continuing to work with pharmaceutical companies for design and processing this product for single use to the marketplace. By using 2 already known technologies in the marketplace, we're able to join them together and introduce the BFS prefilled syringe into the marketplace. Ray, I'm going to hand it back over to you to talk a little bit about the supply chain.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. So, the supply chain for BFS is actually really, really pretty simple. It's only 2 materials primarily. One is the LDPE, which is a low-density polyethylene, which is used to form the containers, polypropylene, which in our case is for the needle hub, and the stainless steel cannula. The needle hub and the cannula come together. So there's really only 2 points of supply for us that are required. Now, there are numbers of manufacturers that produce resins and can produce cannula, but overall, the supply chain is very simple. And as anybody who's in the sterile market today understands, pharmaceutical grade glass is in very, very short supply. And so, when you look at BFS as an alternative, it does create a significant advantage when you think about the flexibility and the scalability, right? So, it really can scale up on a very short notice. It's excellent for surge capacity. The machines themselves are high throughput, and by that, our machines are set to run at, it can produce upwards of 500 units per minute in our configuration. And because it's a continuous process, it is it is very stable once it gets dialed in, which happens in pretty short order, and speed isn't limited by the mechanical limitations on an aseptic line, generally due to the limitations for vial conveyance. So we know that BFS will never replace glass, but it is an excellent alternative and continues to gain further momentum in the marketplace. So with that, I'd like to hand it back over to Beth, who's going to talk about our engagement with the U.S. government and Project Jumpstart.
Thanks, Ray. So our goal as ApiJet, well, actually our founder's goal for ApiJet was really to stop unsafe injections. And was really focused on providing unit dose manufacturing and product to global markets. And back in October 2019, our organization joined with the U.S. government and HHS to start working on a bioterrorism response for surge capacity. This actually moved, our relationship started with HHS prior to the pandemic, and it actually helped move into the pandemic area, where we started working with HHS on how can we get our product to market quicker. So we started working with IPS and TRC on retrofitting their lines in May of 2020. And this is where IPS and Rob really come in. So Rob, would you mind just explaining a little bit of how your organization stepped up to help us with Project Jumpstart?
Certainly, Beth. Thank you. So far, we've discussed several advantages of the BFS technology relative to conventional vial and PFS packaging alternatives, and now we'll take a look at the engineering for it. The work that Beth mentioned with the Right Dose Company involved upgrading 3 of their existing blow-fill-seal manufacturing lines for fill-finish of BSL-2 materials. Now, IPS has a long history with TRC, and several years ago, we participated in the design and implementation of upgrades to that facility to allow for the handling of potent materials. Our assessment for this project identified 4 key areas of improvement to make the facility BSL-2 capable. These included modifications to the HVAC system to provide a negative pressure cascade, addition of airlocks within the BSL-2 boundary, installation of a waste autoclave, and finally, installation of a biokill waste inactivation system. I think as Beth had mentioned, as you saw on the previous slide here, this project was subject to a very aggressive implementation timeline. And in order to achieve that implementation timeframe, the project execution was based on a design assist model. Again, going back to our history with TRC and a number of the subcontractors that worked there, we were able to bring the contractors in at a very early stage in the project, and they participated then actively in the development of design documents for it. And on the flip side, then our designers and architects were also able to participate and help out with the contractors for implementation of those improvements. I think overall the success that we saw, which was to have the first line up and running within a 7-month time interval, owes to the excellent cooperation between all the involved parties, ApiJet, TRC, IPS, and the various subcontractors. Looking at BFS in more general terms, it's important to understand how BFS facilities differ from conventional vial and syringe fill-finish facilities. Over the past couple of years at IPS, we performed a deep dive comparison of these technologies for several clients and have identified a number of advantages and facility design features that result in capital cost and operational efficiencies for these projects. These are really detailed here on this slide. We heard before with Ray, really, BFS technology offers superior sterility assurance. The complete elimination of human intervention from the process and the short duration does in fact provide very good sterility assurance for us. Product quality. As Ray mentioned before, the BFS process eliminates washing, depyrogenation, filling and stopping, and capping. So not only are we eliminating significant sources of product contamination from glass and stopper-generated particulate, we're also eliminating all the defects associated with the stopping process and the capping process. As Ray mentioned also, the equipment footprint and cleanroom classification. BFS is a very compact technology. It's a single machine. It's really very energy efficient compared to what you need to run a conventional line with a washer and a tunnel and a filler and a capper and an isolator. We eliminate the need for WO5 generation, for example, for washing of vials, and it has a very limited cleanroom footprint. And finally, low material cost. we see significantly reduced costs for the primary packaging materials, which is, frankly, the polyethylene or polypropylene resin required to manufacture the bottle, versus either a vial stopper, overseal combination, or prefilled syringe. If you're familiar with facility design, you realize the myriad engineering and business decisions that go into facility layouts, the personnel, material, and equipment flows, the inventory storage capacity, etc. For blow-fill-seal projects, we see advantages in virtually all of these areas. As Ray mentioned before, we see tremendously reduced supply chain complexity. I think the pandemic has given everyone a new outlook, if you will, on the need to have robust and simplified supply chains. We see reduced operational complexity for the facility, and this really extends and touches many areas. This isn't just the relative reduction in complexity of the equipment as we go to the one blow-fill-seal machine versus the 5 or 6 other machines we need on a liquid filling line, but it also results in fewer operating personnel required for the line, less operator training, etc. We see reduced maintenance and calibration costs, which go hand in hand with the reduced equipment requirements for it. Improved personnel and material flows. We simply have less material moving into the area, and we have fewer personnel in the area also, which really allows us to optimize the flows for the few things that we do have. Reduced qualification timelines and costs, and this for me I think is a huge aspect with respect to project execution. If you take a look at a conventional aseptic liquid filling line and the qualification activities required to qualify and to get to media fills on that line, there's a tremendous amount of work to do. The blow-fill-seal system, on the other hand, eliminates many of those qualification activities up front. I won't say all of them, but certainly it's greatly reduced, which allows you to get to a media fill and to stability batches faster than you could on a liquid filling line. We see reduced inventory storage space, reduced inventory carrying costs, and as Ray mentioned before, for pandemic response, this blow-fill-seal technology is especially well suited. The ability to stockpile raw material inventory here so that you can rapidly increase production is unparalleled. You know, we're talking about gaylords of plastic resin, which can be easily and inexpensively purchased and stockpiled, versus having, say, 100 million single-use vials on stockpile. It's a much different aspect for it. And finally, the closed processing allows for handling of potent or BSL-2 materials. Finally, for the design considerations, it is important to understand some of the key differences we see between blow-fill-seal and vial or prefilled syringe facilities. We see, as Ray mentioned, the formulation batch sizes can be quite different. The blow-fill-seal process really wants to be an extended operation process. Once you get it up and running, it's very efficient. So if we're able to continue and extend manufacturing on a campaign basis, say for 100 hours at a stretch, it really helps to reduce the cost of goods sold for us. This can in turn increase the formulation batch sizes required for it. We have CIP, SIP requirements for blow-fill-seal equipment. Again, as Ray mentioned before, there is a requirement to 100% integrity test to fill containers. However, there are good solutions readily available for that. And then finally, some of the material conveying requirements differ markedly here. The polyethylene or polypropylene resin is often conveyed in by vacuum conveyor systems, which allows us to locate the supply for those materials at a location that's convenient for warehousing purposes. It doesn't have to be directly adjacent to the blow-fill-seal machine. And also the handling of dry scrap material and the handling of wet scrap material differ a bit from your conventional processes. I'm going to turn it back over to you now, Beth.
Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate you walking us through that, and I really appreciate our partner with IPS. This now concludes our presentation, and let's move on to the audience and have some questions and answers.
Well, thank you to all our speakers for the informative presentation. Before we get to the audience questions, just a quick reminder, audience members, you can submit your question by typing it in the Q&A box, which is located on the right-hand side of the presentation window. So here's our first question. So how does ApiJect's technology and approach to manufacturing potentially impact the prefilled syringe market?
ApiJect's prefilled syringe technology in the BFS vial allows for different markets to be able to start working on unit dose manufacturing, meaning prefilled syringes are really based in biologics and also other higher valued markets, where for AppyJet we're able to come in, help serve lower costing pharmaceuticals and allowing for manufacturing of generics and vaccines to be able to deliver a single dose solution within the marketplace.
Oh, thank you, Beth. So here's our next question. In regard to facility complexity, how does BFS compare with traditional isolator or RAB-based aseptic fill finish processes?
As we mentioned previously during the presentation, we find that the BFS facilities are considerably less complex in any number of areas when compared to a traditional isolator or RABs-based aseptic fill finish process. You have a significant reduction in the number of pieces of equipment required. For the two, you have a single blow fill seal machine versus 5 or 6 machines required for a typical liquid filling line, et cetera. And we find those sorts of advantages really play out everywhere we look in the facility.
All right, thanks for that answer, Rob. We got another question here. Are you able to retrofit an existing facility to accommodate BFS manufacturing?
Yeah. So, the answer to that is yes. The technical overhead in a BFS is not nearly as high as Rob just mentioned with a traditional line. So the line itself fits in an ISO 7 background, which lends itself to a wider range of applications for deployment, and the footprint is not nearly as large as you would find in a traditional aseptic fill finish line. So the answer to that is yes, it can be.
Okay, thank you. Here's our next question. Can a pilot mold be quickly machined and qualified for use in a GMP manufacturing environment?
Yes, a mold can be quickly machined. However, it can be certainly used in a manufacturing environment. Typically, though, there is a degree of testing and qualification that needs to be done on the mold. So while it can be used, the container needs to be fully vetted that it's suitable for use. But it does lend itself for quick prototyping for new presentations of products on the BFS side.
Thank you. Here's the next question. What is the container size range?
So the container size ranges from 0.5 ml, which is our original technology for the AppyJet injector, up to whatever you desire. It's really about using BFS to mold into different products that can serve the injectable market, and then use our platform technology system to enable for whether it be injection or infusion into a patient.
All right, thank you. Here's another question. How is the fill weight measured or controlled?
Yeah, so it's really volumetric. So fill volumes are done through a time pressure product delivery system that's innate on the machine, and so typically you get very, very nice control. In our case, we are able to control very tight tolerances for the fill volume in our container.
All right, thank you. So what are the limitations on batch size? What's the minimum? What's the maximum?
Yeah, so batch size. So a lot of that is dependent upon each individual facility, but minimum. We've seen it as low as 5 liter, and again that requires a little bit of specialization. Actually, it can go a little bit lower than that, depending on how your fill system is set up. And on the upper range is really more of a function of the limitations on the compounding or the batch preparation that you have. This is a continuous process, so as long as you feed material, it will continue to make good products. So, but we've nominally 1,000 liter is a good average range, but certainly could turn down anywhere below the 1,000 and into the 50 to 100 on a commercial scale, but could certainly go a little bit larger. Again, the limitation is really the batch size, the vessel size.
Well, thank you very much for that answer, and thanks to our speakers for their presentation and taking the audience questions. want to thank our audience for joining us today, and like to thank the sponsors, Apogect in partnership with IPS for making this webcast possible. I'd like to invite our audience members to participate in a brief survey, and you can find that survey on the right side of your screen. And audience members, you'll also receive an email alerting you when this webcast will be available for replay, and I invite you to forward that announcement to your colleagues who may have missed today's live event. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.